All right, let's get our other Facebook groups in here. And I meant to tell you the memory feed is pretty full, so it's like at 90%. So we got everybody in here. Welcome in, everybody. Welcome in. It is Tuesday morning, the 23rd of May, and it is time for an episode of Broncos for Breakfast. I am Nick Kendell, and joined by, as always, Scott Kennedy. Scott, how you doing out there in Atlanta? Before you answered that though, quick shout out. Patrick sent me another care package of Lion coffee from Hawaii, and I'm drinking there's a caramel one that is very good. So I saw that. Hey, what do you want? I'm like, oh, this caramel one looks pretty good. Shout out to Patrick, Lion Coffee, man. You are sponsor of the show. We love you.
Yeah, I got my Lion Coffee too. Lioncoffee.com. Have you seen the new caramel coffee M&Ms? Oh.
No, I haven't.
They're like dark chocolate caramel M&Ms.
Oh my god.
They're good. Yeah, they're good.
All right, I might have to find me some of those because caramel, whatever, potato with coffee. I mean, that's about as good as it gets.
Exactly.
Oh my god. That might be good in a thing of trail mix. Not to get too crunchy granola out here.
Melt it down and turn it into a drink.
But welcome in, everybody. Other than that, we got off the track there real quick there, Scott. How are you doing? What's new? What's changed in the last 24 hours?
Rain. It's a rainy day. That's about it, though. Otherwise, just another day ready to talk some Broncos with everybody. Like I said, these are my morning group therapy sessions. So thanks for everybody for being here today.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. We'll try to keep it, a crisp 35, 45 minutes, but we'll see. As long as the conversation's popping and the super chats are rolling in, we will. The show will march on. I mean, God, if you guys had super chats coming in like Ethan here, $25, the show would go on until forever. I mean, God, we would just not get off. But Ethan comes in and says, "Good morning, gents in Broncos country. I have no expectations on playoffs, but if they make it in 2023, it will be icing on the cake." Yeah, what do you think about this, Scott? I need to think about expectations for playoffs. I haven't even really thought about that for this team this season because it's just been last year was so disappointing. I can't even put my head in that space.
No, I'm thinking I'm same long lines that Ethan here says. No expectations. My expectations are competent football. That's where my expectations are. Now that the wins and losses should, in a sense, take care of themselves. Expectations for playoffs, a lot has to go right for this team to make the playoffs, with injuries, with the team coming together, with Russell Wilson playing better, with the big money free agents fitting in well, with Lloyd Cushenberry being competent at center, or at least bad up from awful. The defense holding par and not taking too big of a step back with some of their new players and a new defensive coordinator. So a lot has to happen there. But what I expect to see is competency out there. I expect to see a direction, a plan, a game plan that's executed, efficiency. I don't expect to see a horse and pony show out there. I know it's Broncos, but you know what I mean on that. I didn't want to use the S word for what kind of show that was last year. Those are my expectations. Now, how that translates to this season, I think the 8-win mark is a good over-under for this team. Like, well, that's not very high. It's double. It's about double what you had last year. That's progress. Get better. Double our wins this year. Add a few more next year, and you're talking, Super Bowl contender with 11, 12 wins possibly in 2 years. So I don't know, but my expectations aren't for playoffs right now. They're for good football, and then let's see how it plays out, wins and losses, with all of those things I mentioned.
I really like the competency take there. I'm going to steal that. That's mine now. So I'm expecting competency as well. I said it first, guys. You guys can rewind the tape. Don't trust Scott. But no, competency for sure. And then also I'm expecting above 500. I think that if you're below that 500 mark, it's a massive disappointment this season because you have coaches who know what they're doing now that have been in the show. They know how to run a football program. And also last season, again, we keep talking about it. These two stats that really stick out to me that point to the Broncos should be in for pretty big positive regression, injury front, and also the one-score games. Those are just two things that typically normalize. Now, I feel like we've said the injury thing every single year we've done the show, Scott. Maybe there's something about mile high air and the altitude, or who knows.
Yeah, but it wasn't as bad 5 years ago.
No, yeah. So
they've been playing at mile high for a long time, and this is a newer phenomenon.
I have no idea. Is there something with Mary Jane and ligament injuries, hamstrings when you're smoking. I don't know. But the injuries and the one-score games are something that I am curious about this season regressing positively. And then on top of that, with much better coaching across the board. So thank you so much, Ethan. $25 is a really big help kicking us off here as the starter. We also got Michael Ronquillo coming in here saying, good morning, Nick and Scott on Broncos for breakfast. Go Broncos and buck 'em. Got the salute emoji in there too. Good to see you, Michael. We appreciate you. Hope you're having a great day out there in Tucson. We got Jeremy Shaw in the house saying, morning, boys. If we don't make the playoffs, it's mostly because of our division, but health will be the biggest factor. Division is a big one too, but also I think just the AFC in general is pretty darn deep. I mean, if you just start listing the best teams in the AFC, it's a pretty serious list out there. I mean, obviously you have the Ravens, who are very good. The Bengals are good. The Bills are incredible. We don't know what's going to happen, but I feel like the Patriots.
Oh yeah, and there's that other team in the West.
I mean, we don't even have to list the West, but just the AFC in general is really good. I mean, are we sleeping on the Steelers? Are we sleeping on the Patriots? Always. It's like those kind of things. So and Jags are really up and coming as well. So when Colin starts listening to some of the teams too, Chiefs, Bills, Jags, Bengals. I think the Chargers are also a team that's a tier above the Broncos right now. And then you got a mass of, again, we were mentioning them, the Steelers, the Dolphins, the Patriots, the Broncos. I think that's kind of those teams that are fighting for like seeds 6 and 7. That's probably where I had the wrong. And and the AFC is just loaded at quarterback, so it's going to be tough.
Yeah, like I said, so I'm not coming with expectations of playoffs. As far as there, a lot has to happen. We forget, we get in a bubble. It's like, well, we've improved here, and here, and here. Other teams are trying to do that too. For the most part, they're trying to do things to make themselves better as well. Let's not forget that. We were like, well, we got better here and we solved this problem. Yeah, so did they. They did too. There's not a lot of regression, and the teams that are ahead, they're way ahead. As far as the big teams that you just mentioned, Chiefs, Bills, Bengals, those three are pretty far ahead of the curve right now.
Yeah. And Kevin Gray saying, morning Broncos country. Nick and Scott, a big mile high salute to Broncos country. Also says we had a comment come in here from Colin mentioning the Jets as well. Forgot about the Jets. They're a team that I probably would put above the Broncos right now also, but who knows? That's why we play the games. Kevin also says, remember to hit the like button on the way in. We appreciate that. Chase Wellner coming in saying, howdy y'all. Good to see you, Chase. One of our big consistent star givers, Miguel, coming in saying, good morning, fellas. Good to see you. Michaela Israel, good to see you, Michaela. And we got the mailbox man himself, the mailman, I guess we'll just call him that. Albert Knoppers with the saying morning, y'all. And we got Scott's mailbox in the background. Looking good. Good to see you, Albert. Hope you're doing well. Isaiah saying good morning. Yep. Go Broncos country. Good to see you, Isaiah. Hope you're doing well. And Greg Smith in the house. Good morning, Broncos for breakfast. Good to see you. And Troy Bower coming in here, $9.99, saying average rust and an average injuries, the average offensive line with competent coaching is worth what, 5 or 6 wins over last season? That's assuming that there's no defensive regression as well at the same time. And going from you're losing. I know that Broncos country will definitely talk down about him. I get he didn't live up to the hype, but you are feeling much better about your edge room last season than you are right now, the defensive line across the board. And also, Ejiro Evero was a question mark last year, but he ended up being a damn good defensive coordinator. Vance Joseph's only proved to be a league average defensive coordinator. So those, you could maybe take away 2 wins there, and there that comes that 3 that Scott was talking about.
Yeah. So again, there's lots of variables here that have to go right for you to be. What was it? 5 wins last year, 5 and 12. Does that sound right? So if you say 5 more, you're at 10, 6, you're at 11. Yep. So that's a big jump because other teams would change how they game plan the Broncos too. They didn't have to take many chances last year. They could control the ball, move slowly, methodically, and know that they could pull something out the end because the offense wasn't really a threat to on the other side of things. So you could play field position. You could take the foot off the gas a little bit and not take too many risks. So again, yes, last year that you can point to a bunch of games where a couple plays here and there swing things, but we always seem to remember the ones that didn't go our way. There's always plays that go along. It's like, oh, if this had happened, this had happened. Yeah, but what about their wide receiver dropping the ball on a bomb or the fumble that they recovered? And, just we're very biased when it comes to reflection. And a lot of things you mentioned what right there, average rust, there's one. That's no guarantee. Average injuries, there's another big one. There's no guarantees. Average OL, we'll see.
Greatly dependent on the average injuries.
Yeah, there's 3, and then 4 is competent coaching. I feel pretty good about the 4th one.
Yeah.
That one I feel good about, assuming that, the everybody do it my way, and he doesn't just come in and steamroll everybody and the players start bucking him. That could be the one thing that I would, sorry, I didn't even mean to throw that out there as far as, buck him. That's the one thing I could see, and I don't see that happening because Sean Payton isn't going to come in like with a giant ego. Bill Parcells was a little like that towards the end of his career. Watch do what I do, and I don't care about you. But that you just listed 4 things right there. You go 4 for 4 on those, you'll be okay. But those are big ones, assuming nothing else regresses, as Nick said.
Yeah,
appreciate you, Troy, for coming in with the super chat this morning.
Yeah, shout out to Troy with the cute golden retriever puppy picture. Wicked Royalty saying, "Good morning, fellas. Have you tried coconut coffee and creamer? It's a game changer." I have not, but I will have to take your. I'll have to look into that one. I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest coconut.
Patrick sent us some coconut, so
yes, and it was good, and I enjoyed it. On the whole, I'm not the biggest coconut guy, but I did enjoy the coconut coffee. I just would never pick it myself. But it's very good, and I actually like fresh coconut. Like if it's like just been picked and I've eaten it, and I'm on vacation in Hawaii, I'm game. But typically, I would not pick it myself.
My favorite part, my office is in the basement, so my favorite part of having the coconut was the way my office would smell the rest of the day. So
it does smell great.
It's like I'm gonna just take some of those grounds and just pour them in every trash can.
Yeah,
smells nice.
Good compost. Jason Walton, good morning, guys. Some good energy in the city of Denver right now. Hope it carries over in the fall. Yeah, congrats to the Nuggets going to the the NBA championship for the first time and sweeping LeBron James. I grew up on Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, so I'm not a basketball guy really.
How did you grow up with Michael Pippen? I guess that's right. Yeah, I mean you were like 5.
It's some of my first sports memories.
Okay,
is watching the Bulls beat the Jazz specifically.
I'm like, because Pippen was drafted in '83, I think.
I have no idea.
I think he was drafted then, but he finished his run in '98, I believe, was the last one.
Yep. So I was very young. Some of my first sports memories. Him and Mark McGuire and John Elway. That was a good time. But Lawrence Rivera.
Was 25 when Michael Jordan won his last championship. I'm like, I grew up with Michael Jordan. But my same way to think of that was Kareem and Bird and Magic.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of Dr. J was finishing up. Those were good times. I mean, the 80s basketball was so awesome. 80s NBA was awesome. It really was.
Well, I was happy to see the Lakers get beat, and I've grown to respect LeBron James a little bit more. I used to really not like him as much when he was. I tried to really get into the Bulls. I couldn't do it as much. If the Sonics came back, count me in. But pulling for the Nuggets, no doubt, and good to see that they did that. And says goodbye, King James. You and Kobe have had our number for so long. It's our game to lose. What's up, guys? Good morning. Yeah, I'm definitely pulling for you guys over the Heat. I do like Jimmy Butler, but definitely going Nuggets all the way. So hopefully you guys end up winning, and that'd be great. Avalanche win it last year. Nuggets this year. Hey, maybe it's Denver next year. I think it's more likely the Broncos than the Rockies. So got to keep that streak going there because the Rockies are, plug your nose. Dom Armio coming in saying, good morning, Nick and Scott in Broncos country. Nick, I'm so jealous you get to go to the Goonies Beach. You lucky dog. Yeah, it's going to be great out there. Hopefully we have good weather. But yeah, they have it's a giant monolith, like sea stack rock that's pretty close to the beach. And it is a animal sanctuary because puffins nest on it. Typically they nest like miles and miles out in the ocean, but this is one that's so big and close that they will nest on it. And we got to go out and see the puffins. They're in migration right now. So that'll be a blast. I'm excited to go there. Hopefully we have good weather. We'll see though. We got Roderick Coate coming in saying, who has the best nose, your lovely boy or my old Airedale, Nick? I love your Airedale nose there. So I love go ahead, Scott.
I was like, what are you talking about?
I have the best nose.
I'm like, I have great sense of smell and hearing. My eyes are going, but we were talking about coconut and stuff. Like I've got a great sense of smell and hearing. I'm like a blind dog.
No, talking about dogs, talking about the best schnoz. So Summit's got a big old schnoz, but I do love that Airedale one that's sticking out there. So I'm definitely biased to my boy, but I try to fight biases in here, so I'll even say yours. Gary Palmer, 1999, saying, "Good morning, Nick and Scott. I'll be disappointed if we miss the playoffs, but if we were relevant, that's okay." I mean, really, yeah, we've talked about it. Can like the Broncos' last 2 games of the year, week 16 and 17, Chargers, Raiders, matter? Can it not be like, I guess even it's been even worse last season because like we're not even getting a good draft pick for losing. But can it like matter from a playoff perspective? If things break the right way, if the Broncos win, then we can work our way to the 6, 7 seed. That would be incredible. So if we miss the playoffs, yeah, it'll be disappointing. But like, when's the last time the Broncos had meaningful December football? It has been since like 2016, honest to God. And that's way too long.
Yeah, it is. And we've gone over all the reasons why it should get better, but I fully expect it to improve. Last year was, I was like, oh, well, at least we'll have exciting football. No, we had bad football. The coordination was just, defense was better as far as making big plays and getting after the quarterback. I thought it was a little more exciting, but the offense was like Novocaine, man. It was just numbing. It's so bad. I really had a hard time picturing an NFL football team having an offense that was that disorganized.
Yeah.
It was incompetent, yeah, but it was just, there was no coordination to the offensive coordination.
It was really ugly and disjointed, without a doubt. Jeremy coming in and saying Nick's going to do the truffle shuffle. For a super chat, I'll do the truffle shuffle on air. But that might get us flagged. I don't know if we want to do that. Orange Bucky coming in saying, do you guys believe Yannick Ngakoue might be picked up? I think there's a chance the Broncos could bring in an edge rusher just yet. Probably it'll be a little bit further down the line. And these guys are holding out still. I don't blame them. It's not just Yannick Ngakoue out there too. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, some of these signings at this point in the offseason come in like, oh, that guy signed? Huh, I missed that one. But Yannick Ngakoue is still out there. Frank Clark is still out there. And there is one, Melvin Ingram is still out there as well, I believe. And those are 3 veteran guys. Yannick Ngakoue. Leonard Floyd's still out there, yep. Which is somebody to keep an eye on also. You've got about $10 million, just a little bit less than that in available cap space. Your rookies, normally you have to think, okay, well, a lot of that goes to the rookies. No, not with this team. One of the benefits of not having your first round picks is you can go sign some free agents. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And without a doubt, we'll see. The Broncos still need help on the defensive line. They still need depth on the offensive line too. I mean, God, I think it's going to be a real eye opener when we get to training camp and you have like the first ones going against the 2s. And it's like, oh my God, the Broncos defensive line is incredible. And it's like, well, you have Quinn Bailey and Isaiah Prince as your starting tackles with Luke Ottenberg giving snaps. Like, like right. I'm very concerned about the depth on both sides of the lines of scrimmage.
Yeah, and we asked, like, we had that question last week, Nick, I think, was when can you start getting a feel for what the team is? It's like when they have to start playing against other people. Once you start getting, I'm sure they're doing, has it been announced? I've seen some announcements from other teams on
joint
intra-squad practices.
Joint
practices. Thank you. Who do the Broncos have?
It's not official yet, but in Sean Payton's press conference, he messaged that they're trying to work something out with the Los Angeles Rams, their 3rd preseason game.
That will give you a better idea. It's still very controlled and very simulated, but it will give you a better idea of what you've got because you'll have ones going against ones, and each team is trying to beat the other team. You're still trying to evaluate and get better in practice, but the guy in front of you isn't being handicapped for one reason or another as they're trying to install. It's like, listen, we're working on offense here, so no blitzes, or it'll be a better. But as Nick is saying, when you're watching fall practice and you have to take into account, okay, this guy looks really good, but he's also going against one of ours. Is it he's really good or this guy's not good enough? And you don't know that until you start going against guys that are on or wearing different uniforms than you.
Yeah, and even then, it's only a small little bit of information because last year the Broncos beat the absolute living you-know-what out of the Dallas Cowboys. And we saw how those 2 teams' seasons and trajectory went. So nothing beats live reps, live bullets, but every single way along the process towards the regular season, what matters, what you can take away from it, kicks up some. So that's that's probably the next biggest one that we can actually gather some real information.
That's where you start talking sample size, right?
Yep. And then it's like, okay, it's only been 1 week. So let's see what happens at week 6 when you can look at all of them together. So like last year, what was it?
Saying that the standings don't lie. At the end of the year, that you are who you are. Yeah. And last year the Broncos were 5-12, and there's a long way back from that. We said a lot. This team isn't as bad as the 5-12. They're closer to coming back than you might think than some of these other teams. Houston's got kind of a long way to go. Mm-hmm. Detroit's closer. I think Chicago still has a long way to go, but they've got some good pieces in place. They're going to have a lot of new players, but the Broncos have a good core, and the coaching staff should be a lot better. Appreciate you coming on Twitch, Robot of Doom. Good comment from Keith Brugman I wanted to highlight here. Diminishing returns. He says, I have a hard time placing Russell Wilson higher than 15th best quarterback in the league. What say you?
That seems about right to me. I think anywhere from 17 to 12 makes sense for me. It's firmly average, and that's probably best case scenario right now for me. I mean, things can change a lot, and I am definitely biased because I did not watch a lot of Seattle football, and it's been a while since he's been it's been 2 years since he's been at his top of his game for Seattle, because he was not great his last year in Seattle either, dealing with that injury. So some recency bias there, and just some bias of what I watched and was more emotionally attached to as the Broncos, and it was god awful. So I'm a little bit guarded against that, but probably I think that's a pretty good call out, Keith. We'll see. Maybe I'm a hater, but I need to see it to believe it.
Yeah, and you'll see, because there's some that I think might regress, and you start looking at quarterback ratings. Nick, I'll give you a guess. Try not to, for the audio on this, not to pause too long. So think quickly. And I wouldn't be asking if it wasn't a little strange. Who was the third highest rated quarterback in the NFL last year with at least 10 starts?
Marcus Mariota?
Nope. No, he wasn't even close.
Okay. What quarterback rating? QBR?
The old-fashioned rating, not ESPN's QBR.
Was it Tom Brady?
He was up there in yards, but it was Jimmy Garoppolo.
Okay.
He finished 10th. He finished with a 103 quarterback rating. So I start looking at some of these things. Tua was actually number 1, then Patrick Mahomes, Jimmy G, Jalen Hurts, Geno Smith, Joe Burrow, Jared Goff, Josh Allen, Andy Dalton, Trevor Lawrence were top 10. The next to get into Keith's top 15 was Trevor Lawrence, Ryan Tannehill, Justin Herbert, Daniel Jones, Kirk Cousins, and Dak Prescott. And then the next half, you had some pretty big names. At 16, you had Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Taylor Heineke, Jacoby Brissett, and Marcus Mariota. So you say it sounds about right, but then you see some places where, okay, I can see him jumping over some of these guys and squeaking into the top 10 somehow with some regression, some team changes, some retiring. But if you can get 15, I think if you're at 15 and you get average quarterback play, and you're talking average quarterback play, 15 for Dak Prescott, he only played 12 games. So let me move up to Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones was 13 and got a massive contract. Was 3,200 yards, and he also runs the ball, so that's part of it too, with only 15 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. Wow, is that true? Good Lord. They paid him that much money? Wow.
The rushing aspect of it too is a big part of it.
So maybe that's not a great comparison. So let's go. But Justin Herbert's next. He's 25-10. Ryan Tannehill was 13-6 with 12 games. So yeah, it's possible. He could put up numbers, put up a 3-1. Wouldn't a 30-10 touchdown interceptions be very nice? And if you can do that, you're gonna be top 15.
Yeah, I mean 30-10 is. I don't even think that's possible. I would be excited about 25-12 from him this season.
Nice 2-1. So yeah. But what was it last year? Last year he was 16-11, and he was the 27th rated quarterback on 15 games, just not below good. Mac Jones and Justin Fields, which is, and the old-fashioned rating is a passing rating. You finish below Justin Fields as a passer.
Yeah, with a lot better offensive and double wolf on that one.
That's wolf worthy.
Yeah. Yep, that is rough. And PFF has the Broncos not making the playoffs. They did an article recently about each AFC team, whether or not they'll make the playoffs. And for the Broncos, they say no. And the main reason the Broncos will not make the playoffs is, you guessed it, Russell Wilson. They say this was another difficult team to assess playoff-wise, but there are only 7 spots to give out, and Denver misses the cut. Sean Payton should do very well with this team, and the top to bottom, this is one of the best rosters in the NFL. But Russell Wilson's performance last season was concerning. If you are on the other side of this argument, believing that trading out Nathaniel Hackett for Payton at head coach will bring back the version of Russell Wilson who made the postseason 8 out of 9 years from 2012 to 2020, I hear you, but Wilson's struggles go well beyond just last season. He recorded an 88.6 passer grade in 2020, then a 70.6 passer grade in his last season in Seattle in 2021, and then last season, a scary low 64.9 passing grade. So new career worst, and every single year he's set new career worst marks. So 3 years in a row of negative regression. I do see some bounce back this upcoming season, but probably not to what we saw Russell Wilson prior to the 2019. So that's concerning, no doubt. But we also have Colin Wood coming in saying, I wonder what Jameis was the year he was 35 and 30. I don't know. That's a lot of picks.
I looked it up. I looked it up while we were talking PFF. So when he was 35 and 30 on touchdowns to interceptions, setting, I think, league records for interceptions, his quarterback rating was 84.3. 84.3 puts him a 1/10 of a point behind Russell Wilson at 28th and in front of Matt Ryan. So some golden oldies there. So it would have put him at 28th with players that had enough passes to qualify despite throwing 33 touchdowns, because interceptions matter. 30 is a lot.
Yeah. And also I see the comment here from Roy saying, what time is the show tonight? Isn't it at 7 Central?
I screwed it up. I'm all over the place. So
you both had it wrong.
7 Central, and you don't. Who cares if you're in Central? It's Mountain time. It's 6 Mountain, 8 Eastern. So ignore this Scott Kennedy sports guy. He's a moron.
Okay, I was looking, and Roy also said 7 p.m. Mountain, and I'm like, it's 5 p.m. Pacific, and I'm pretty sure Mountain is just 1 over. So
I forgot to carry the 1.
Yeah. Subtracted, divided by the log. No. So it'll be at 6 Mountain, 5 Pacific, 7 Central, 8 Eastern. So hopefully that covers the bases for you. But we'll see you tonight, Roy. Hopefully you don't come in.
Yeah, we screwed you up, Roy. It's always, and you can always check on the description of any show. Everybody, the schedule is in there. So we started doing that about a year ago. To have the whole every show schedule is on the description of any show that we do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, without a doubt. But so they talk about the Broncos missing the playoffs mainly because Russell Wilson's regression, and I think that's the obvious one to me. But number 2 for me, and you guys probably would know it if you've listened to any of these shows or were tuned in earlier, but why would the Broncos miss the playoffs? Depth on the defensive and offensive lines. You're going to have injuries on the offensive line at some point this season. The starting 5 that you have right now will not be the starting 5 you have at the end of the season. And just going through the Broncos depth chart, it is like scary who they're going to be trotting out there on that unit. I mean, we watch a lot of football, Scott, and there are names on the 2 and 3 deep that I'm like, I have no idea in hell who they are. We watch college football too. I mean, your backup left tackle, according to our lads, is Christian DeLaro. I don't know who that is. I've never heard of him in my life. Your backup right tackle is Isaiah Prince, who was dreadful when he was drafted 7th round, I think, from Cincinnati. He was not very good. Hunter Thedford behind him. Your backup left guard is Quinn Bailey. Backup center Luke Wattenberg. Backup right guard Kyle Fuller. I mean, just who you have right now on the second unit of the offensive line is horrific, and you hope that you don't see them because that's not a rotational position, but you will depend on that depth somewhere at some point. You need to feel good about 8 guys on that unit right now. I feel good about 5, and good is relative. After that, go ahead.
So just here's the problem, Nick, is if you go offensive line, you start having a problem on the offensive line. Who's that going to affect the most? So who's going to struggle the most?
Everybody. God, Russell Wilson, I guess.
Russell
but
Wilson.
The run game too, though.
But Russell Wilson will get the blunt of it. If you're rushing for 2.5 yards per carry, it just makes it harder and harder for the most visible player on your team, which is Russell Wilson. If you can't run the ball and protect the quarterback, Russell Wilson's going to have a nightmare. Mm-hmm. We saw it last year. I kept saying last year, Nick, I can't get a fair evaluation on Russell Wilson because the offensive line, especially the interior offensive line, is so poor. That can't happen again. All of this stuff doesn't matter if I can just rush right up the middle on you. If I can just blow up the middle of your offensive line, everything else we're talking about doesn't matter.
Yep. It's how right. It's the system. It's the first checkpoint. If that one's or a flow chart, right? Good enough offensive line. Nope. Poop emoji. That's where it goes after that. But
go to the bottom. Miss playoffs.
Go to jail. But yeah, no, the offensive line
it's basic troubleshooting. Your refrigerator doesn't work. Well, why not? Is it plugged in? Yeah. Okay. Well, is there power to the outlet? Let's check the circuit breaker. The refrigerator might be fine.
Mm-hmm.
What's leading up to the earliest point of failure?
Yep.
It's going to be your interior offensive line again.
Yep. So I'm very concerned about the interior offensive line or the offensive line depth in general, not just interior, but tackle. And then the defensive line, feel a little bit better about the depth there, but not great right now, especially because one of your starters, according to our lads, is Jonathan Harris. We've harped on that a bit. Your third line of interior defensive line is Wazirike, big question mark still. Mike Purcell can fill a role, not great, but can fill a role out there. He's fine. And then Matt Henningsen.
He's a $3 million guy. He can do a job.
He can do a job if he's healthy. Last season was the first year he's been healthy in like 2 or 3. So a little bit concerned about that. He's not a plus player, but for what he is, he's fine. I think that getting another starter in there and kicking everybody back a spot would be great, but we're depending a lot on those 2022 draft class picks who were day 3 players who you shouldn't really be depending on, but you are at this point in Wazirike and Matt Henningsen. Then, of course, you also got the edge rushing position. That's a question mark as well. But for me, it's not Russell Wilson. It is the depth and the talent on the trenches still, specifically overall talent on the defensive line and second string talent on the offensive line.
Yeah, you start looking at some of the other places. Running back, I'm okay at running back, and I can get guys to fill in and play the running back position. Is it as deep as I would like right now? Maybe not. Could it be? Might be a strength by the end of the year. Wide receivers, yeah, I'm okay at wide receiver. Let's see Tim Patrick get back. Cortland Sutton is a competent wide receiver. Jerry Jeudy could be a budding star at worst. He's still pretty darn good. And then Marvin Mims can come in and help out as well. And anything you get from I'm going to call him Karel Hodge. What's KJ Hamler? Thank you. You begin with a K. Was KJ Hamler could just be bonus. Jerome Washington come is. He says, you guys can say what you want about my Broncos. Russ will cook, and we got 2 new offensive linemen. Yes, you did. You needed 3. You needed 3, Jerron. But hopefully the big vote of confidence was hopefully from Sean Payton on Lloyd Cushenberry was we think he'll be better with better guys around him. The translation on that is we can protect him better. We can hide him better. We can scheme around one guy instead of 2 guys up the middle of the defense, up the middle of the offense a little bit better. It just didn't fall the way you wanted to get a center earlier on in the draft. The free agents didn't quite work the way you wanted to. So it's up to Cushenberry to hold the fort. Just get in the way at least and not just be on skates. Oh God, it was just, like I said, Russell Wilson's getting all this crap, deservedly so for some things, because it wasn't every play, but there's a lot of plays where Lloyd Cushenberry's he's 4 yards deep in the backfield within moments after the snap. You can't run plays like that, man. When Lloyd Cushenberry's in your lap and you're trying to either hand off or set your feet to throw, your play is blown up right away. And I remember a phrase, it's like, the broken play is no basis for an offense. Yeah, he's great at improvising. Yeah, but every play is broken when someone's blowing up your offensive line right up the middle. So we'll see. We'll see. And John, just follow up on that with Javonte Williams back. He says, we're going to prove these haters wrong. We get Javonte Williams back, who is a beast. He is a beast. We'll see. We'll see. I'm not stating he's coming back as a fact. I'm stating it as a hope. Before a fact. It's a long road for him to be back to where he was before he got hurt.
Yep, and definitely the prompt itself makes us come off as a little bit of haters and skeptics. And Scott and I are definitely skeptics at heart. But what are other reasons besides Russell Wilson that the Broncos might not make the playoffs? that in itself leads to a question mark or like something that we are concerned about and criticizing. And for me, it would be the second string offensive line, the defensive line depth in general. But reason the Broncos, do you have any other ones, Scott, that stick out to you? I mean, obviously we harped on that for a bit.
No, I mean, it's just speaking of, the injury factor,
Yeah.
that's always out there. But, I start looking across wide receivers. Okay. Tight ends, we're okay. Running backs, good. Flip over the other side of the ball. The interior defensive line is a little bit of a worry. The quality depth at edge is a little bit of a worry. So just your front five is scary. Okay, well, that's a big weakness if the front five isn't. If Randy Gregory's healthy and Baron Browning takes that next step, you're good. Then you've got some good 3-4 guys to come in at edge. You need those 1 and 2s though, and I'm not sure you got them. If you're starting, if Browning, who's had trouble staying healthy, we know Randy Gregory's healthy, staying on his history staying on the field. Then you're playing 3 and 4s all the time. You got a problem at edge.
Yeah.
Corner, I like it. I'm good there. Safety, I think you're okay there, but we've said from the beginning that second starting safety spot is a concern. It's not as big a concern as, and it's way back off the line.
You got enough short-term answers.
It's a concern, but it's not an, oh my God, if I'm not as good at safety, it's not going to end my every play. You can rotate guys, you can get pressure, you can do all kinds of different things. So yeah, I think you're on it. Obviously, besides the big injury. Well, let me hit this one on Damage Inc. real quick because I'm OCD, and once it's in my head, I can't unsee it. Scott, what's your prediction for Man City and Inter in the Champions League final? The Champions League is one of the coolest competitions in worldwide sports. As long as Pep doesn't try to outthink himself like he tends to do in big cup matches, I think this is City's year. I think they got it. 1-0, 2-0. So I think it's City's year to pull the double and finally get that Champions League final. And Damage Inc. is an absolutely awesome walk-up song. I want to try and figure out how to do it. So Damage Inc. is the final track on Metallica Master of Puppets. So there we go.
Yeah, I saw that Chelsea finished in the second half of the English Premier League for the first time since 1996. Was that it?
I didn't watch the last game against City. It's the first Chelsea match I haven't watched in forever. It's like, just end the season already. I mean, time goes so fast. My kids are getting older. I'm getting older that you don't want to rush things. But man, am I ready for this season to be over. Fresh start, new coach, owners with lots of money.
Ethan's got to get you right on the language here. It's 2-0, 1-0, not 0.
American Joe.
Yeah, that's a good shout, Ethan. You're right. Got to play on the pitch, right? But no, continuing forward here, I agree with you. You talk about the back seven. Broncos may not have like great play. Well, obviously they have great players there. Patrick Stan, Justin Simmons are obviously great, like all pro talents. But Russell Sell sandwiches does not cook. I mean, I've had some sandwiches that are cook worthy. Yeah, that's other things. You mentioned the back seven, though, cornerback and safety. I think the Broncos have answers there that we have questions going into the season, but there's enough options that you're going to come away with answers. And if they fail, you can punt that question again to next season. But for the immediacy, the defensive line stands out for me a lot, followed by the offensive line depth. And then, of course, quarterback. After that, you can get into a little bit of weaponry, like running back. We're still big on Javonte Williams question marks, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, but we can nitpick. We can nitpick other teams too, just down to that. It's like, okay, the starting safety is not as good, but what is the big thing?
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that we're saying on this, PFF says the progression or regression. I don't even see regression. I mean, Russell bottomed out last year. I mean,
you hope so.
but if he's any worse than that, he won't be on the field for very much longer. So that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, they won't continue with that level of play through an entire 2023 campaign. It just won't happen. We'll see Jarrett Stidham. It'll be it. He's at the bottom. If it stays flat, it's done. Just put an X at it right there. So he's either got to come back or he's going to be out. I firmly believe that. Yep. Speaking of defensive line, though, Keith had a question, came in with some stars. He says, a deep dig for you. I liked Jonathan Kongbo, but he's gone. What didn't he have to make it in the NFL, Nick?
He is he was brought in mostly for his special teams ability, and the Broncos have really hammered special teams, and I guess they didn't value him enough in that aspect to bring him back. So we'll see what happens. I mean, they talked about they still might bring back Jacob Martin. If Kongbo's still out there, I don't even know if he signed with somebody else. Then maybe they could still bring him back just yet. He had looked like a good body type for the position, but somebody didn't really stand out too much. So we will see what happens with him. But
he went to 3 different colleges, so he didn't really make it anywhere.
No. Good special teams player, decent athlete, just not a football player as much. So
I don't know. 6'4", and I just closed that tab. Hopefully I'll get going again. 6'4", 265, it just may not have had the explosiveness he needs, because that's an edge position, and edge is an athlete. I've always said that corners are arguably, and I would make a strong argument for it, the most physically gifted athletes in world sports. Man, the edges aren't too far off when you start putting in the size and speed, when you factor in the size that they have.
Yeah. Freaks. Without a doubt. So last one I want to get into here. He says, who wrote this? It was actually Trevor Sikkema who wrote it. So shout out to Trevor. I like Trevor. Why the Broncos might make the playoffs. And this is one that I'm going to go first because gosh darn it, Scott, I want to make sure that I say mine so you don't steal it. But for me, mine is very much overarching, and it is program vision and complementary football across the board. And we talked about Kongbo a bit here, but one for me, we talk about, the Broncos can do this, and this year. They'll get plus 3 or 4 wins. I feel pretty safe in saying that special teams will be that much better this year that the special teams difference alone is going to make a difference in 1 win. And that's for the third phase of football. 1 win is giant out there. So I think special teams is out there, and just the program vision and complementary football as a whole. What we're doing all fits together. The puzzle pieces make sense. It's not just out there and we're just button mashing plays. We have no idea exactly what we're trying to do game in and game out. Broncos have a vision of more physical on the offense, running the football, setting up the home run plays in the pass game, and then complementary football with the defense and special teams as well. So why for the Broncos making a better sense? It all comes down to coaching and leadership and program vision, but even more on the on-field aspect of that, I think complementary football for the Broncos with all 3 phases playing together for one unified direction and vision makes a lot of sense for what I see this team doing this season.
I would say a 4th phase that you could add in there, Nick, to just pile on here is in-game management.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about offense, defense, special teams, but also situational awareness from your head coach on, when to punt, when to kick a field goal, when to go for it based on, I'm going to have this much time on the clock. I'm trying to get 1 more first down. If I go for it here, then I can get the ball back with the second quarter, or I can limit them on possessions. The whole game of chess out there is the in-game management on how to win a game is going to be improved. Your offensive line is going to be better. Even the players that you had on the offensive line should play better, because you should have a cohesive, I keep saying coordination because all I think of is offensive coordinator, but it should be, you should have a plan. When you're on offense, you got to know what you're doing, and you got to believe in what you're doing. And we didn't see that last year. And if you have to hesitate, your advantage on offense is where you're going. If you don't really know what you're doing and believe what you're doing, you give up your advantage to the guys who were frankly better athletes than you on the other side of the field, and you're going to get whipped. Being able to dictate because you've got competency on offense is going to make everybody better, Nick.
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt. So, Scott, we're at 43 minutes. I think it's time to wrap it on up here. Any final thoughts before we get out of here? So PFF says the Broncos won't make the playoffs, and it's mainly because Russell Wilson has been regressing the last 3 seasons in a row, and they're predicting that this will be a 4th, but they did leave the caveat that if you think Sean Payton can come in and going from Hackett to Payton will make a big enough difference, that's fine, and they totally understand that. But overall, we are both, I think, on the same page for this Broncos team this year, that the Broncos are going to be feisty and in the competitive spot. I think you have them 8 wins. I think that you set them at 8 wins as expectations. Anything worse than that is a disappointment. I'm going to set it at 9 wins. I think they need to finish 500. Anything less than that is a disappointment. But anything you want to add on to that for this conversation today before we take it on?
You asked me final thoughts on this. If Russell Wilson, here's what I agree with that. We'll find out. If we've got the quarterback, we've got the offensive line, the offensive weapons are returning. We'll find out. If they don't make the playoffs, we will find out if it's because of Russell Wilson or not. I believe that. The pieces have been put in place for Russell Wilson to be successful. Second year, veteran offensive coaching instead of new, everything new, that there's no excuses anymore. And if Russell Wilson doesn't play at least close to where he's getting paid, he ain't going to be here in 2024.
Yeah, I saw the NFL.com did their quarterback rankings list and ranking the AFC teams. And they said that, hey, if Russell Wilson is struggling this year at all, might be Jarrett Stidham making an appearance this year and riding it on home for Denver, partially because of what we talked about yesterday, Scott, that injury guarantee in that Russell Wilson contract. But going to be a wild season. The Broncos, regardless, good or bad, they're going to be interesting. Michael Ronquillo, always interesting, coming in with the stars here, saying, great show today, Nick and Scott on Broncos for breakfast. Go Broncos and buck 'em. Thank you so much, Michael. Buck you too. A big buck you. Buck all y'all. It's great. We appreciate you coming in and supporting us. Also, I see Ethan coming in here as the closer, saying, great show and chat, everyone. Thank you so much, Ethan. Ethan,
in youth baseball, the only pitcher you're allowed to put back into the game is the starter. So Ethan opened us up. Now he's closing us. We put him back in. He's closing the game for us.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ethan. I've been thinking about you a lot with the Drew Sanders pick. Hopefully he works out for you and he scratches that itch that you've been screaming for, so we can find some common ground on some of these positions going forward. But yeah, it'll be a lot of fun to follow this team. And Scott, I'll be back again tonight for Broncos for breakfast with Carl. And then Scott and I'll be live tomorrow and Thursday morning. So make sure you guys are hanging out with us. Going to be a lot of fun. Off season's here, but a good show today. Shout out to PFF we don't always agree with them, but providing some content and a prompt that we could talk about for 30 minutes today. So God bless them. Scott, what do you think? It's time to wrap it up. Any other things you want to talk about before we get on out of here?
Nope, I'm good. We get out of school early down here, so I got 2 more days, and then I've got a high schooler. That's what's on my mind. So.
Well, good luck. Make sure you guys are following Scott and I on Twitter. Scott is at Scout Kennedy. I'm at Nick Kendell MHH. Also follow us at BFB_pod and at Mile High Huddle. If you haven't done so yet, join us on our Facebook communities, facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. If you're listening to us after the fact or you listen to podcasts at all, Spotify, Apple, iTunes, whatever it is, find us, Mile High Huddle, Huddle Up Podcast. Leave us a 5-star review, and that helps us a heck of a lot. Seriously, it's free. It doesn't take very long to do. Finding us on there, but you can probably do it in less than 60 seconds. And seriously, so helpful. If you think we've earned it, don't go there if you think, we're just placating us. But if you think we've earned it, that'd be really helpful for us. We'd appreciate it. Maybe Scott wants you to go anyway. But for me, if you feel like we've earned it, then that's great. And as the ticker says underneath here, if you're joining us on YouTube, please subscribe to Mile High Huddle, subscribe to the channel, like this show specifically, and share it on your social media platforms. I always appreciate that when I see people on their Facebook or Instagram or Twitter account sharing our shows. A little bit jarring to see my face, like, oh, that's what I looked like at 6:30 this morning. Or it's when it's the frozen one. Yeah, like I'm talking right now. Like that kind of thing. Yeah, there's been some good screen grabs out there. No real final thoughts here. I think we should wrap it on up. Brendan P saying Apple is a joke. Well, they got my money, so I guess the joke's on me on that one. But Sunny Days coming in saying, appreciate you guys. Great show. Hope you're doing well. And Sean Payton is the number 10 head coach in the NFL and the AFC. Hopefully he's better than that. But hopefully he's number 1 by the end of the season. No final thoughts, though, Scott. I think we should wrap it on up. You guys continue to choose kindness and compassion. And as always, leave you guys with the Go Broncos.